114 local, north of Rovenky. A 19-vehicle Russian fuel convoy rolls onto the P-66, headlights hooded, spacing tight, tankers heavy, with diesel bound for the Svatove forward supply point. The lead driver is not scanning the sky. He has no reason to. For 18 months, Russian logistics doctrine has treated this stretch of road as sanctuary, 60 to 80 kilometers deep, blanketed by electronic warfare, well beyond the reach of any small first-person view drone. Sanctuary. That word is going to die tonight, and it is going to die in 34 minutes. 3,500 meters overhead, a Ukrainian Shark reconnaissance UAV has been circling for nearly an hour. It has already counted every vehicle in the column. It has already timed the gap between the lead KAMAZ 53215 tanker and the trail security truck. It has already passed the bearing, the speed, and the projected route to a Vampire strike section, holding on 20-minute alert 47 kilometers to the west. The convoy commander does not know he is a data point. He is about to find out. This is Fury Military, where we break down the battles quietly rewriting this war, system by system, sensor by sensor. Here is the asymmetry, stated flat. Roughly $1.4 million in Russian logistics assets and diesel are about to burn. The Ukrainian side will spend, all in, approximately $85,000 in drone munitions to do it. That gap, a factor of 16, is not the accident of one bad night. It is the shape of the war now, and it raises the first question I want you to hold until the end of this video. In this kill chain, which link actually decides Rovenky? A. The Shark UAV that found the convoy at 3.5 kilometers up. B. The Vampire heavy bomber octocopters that delivered the thermobaric payload. Or C. The electronic warfare gap along the P-66 corridor that let both of them work. A, B, or C. Drop your answer in the comments. I will tell you which one is right at the end, and it surprises most people who watch this channel. Stay with this. What happens in the next 90 seconds of narration is the moment a 280,000-liter fuel column stops being a fuel column. But first, why Rovenky? Why this convoy? Why this night? Rovenky sits in southern Luhansk oblast, and it is not a random dot on the map. It is the fuel distribution node feeding the Russian 2nd Combined Arms Army's logistics tail into the Svatove Kupiansk operational rear. Diesel arrives by rail from the Rostov direction, gets broken into truck lots, and moves north by highway. Break Rovenky, and you do not just kill 19 trucks. You throttle fuel throughput across an entire operational sector for as long as the smoke lingers over the P-66. That is the target. That is why the Vampire Regiment is holding alert 47 kilometers west. That is why the Shark has been up since well before midnight. The convoy is a familiar mix. 12 KAMAZ 53215 tankers, each carrying roughly 20,000 liters of diesel. 3 Baz Prime movers dragging trailer-mounted fuel bladders. 2 support trucks. 1 workshop, 1 command. A lead vehicle, a trail vehicle. 19 in total. Russian logistics doctrine tells this convoy commander 3 things. Move at night. Keep spacing tight enough to defend. Loose enough to survive a single strike. Trust the EW umbrella. On paper, the plan is fine. On paper. Because here is what Russian command has been telling itself, and it matters. The rear area night convoy, 60 to 80 kilometers behind the line of contact, has been the safest logistics window in the Russian playbook since early 2024. FPV drones, the ubiquitous, deadly 7-inch racers everyone talks about, do not have the range to reach it. Ukrainian artillery is prioritized elsewhere. Electronic warfare pods on the ground and jammer stations along the corridor were assumed to shut down anything that tried. Russian command called this band untouchable. Sensors do not care what Russian command calls things. In spring 2026, something changed that nobody wearing a Russian shoulder patch fully processed. Ukraine formally stood up what defense analysts have been calling the Vampire Heavy Bomber Drone Regiment, a specialized formation built around the R18 Vampire octocopter, purpose-designed to reach exactly this depth. The R18 Vampire is not an FPV. It is a heavy-lift 8-rotor bomber with a payload of roughly 15 kilograms, a combat radius that comfortably clears 70 kilometers with the right batteries, and the ability to loiter, communicate with an overhead spotter, and drop precision munitions on stationary or slow-moving targets. 15 kilograms of thermobaric warhead is not a shaped charge trying to punch through armor. It is a fuel-air overpressure weapon designed to gut soft-skinned vehicles and set liquid fuel on fire, which, if you are looking at a 19-truck diesel convoy, is exactly the tool you want. The kill chain assembles like this. The Shark, at 3,500 meters, is Ukraine's medium-altitude eyes. It has a stabilized electro-optical turret, an infrared channel, and a data link pushing real-time video and coordinate solutions back to a targeting cell. It is not shooting anything. Its job is to see, from that altitude, in clear July air, a moving fuel convoy is not subtle. Diesel exhaust plumes red on thermal. Headlight discipline breaks down when a driver has to change gears. Spacing tells you doctrine. The Shark operator, per Defense Express geolocation of the wreck field and Militarnyi cross-referencing of the Shark tracks that night, identified the convoy heading north out of Rovenky at 01:14 local time. Bearing, speed, composition, projected intercept. 47 kilometers west, a Vampire strike section came off alert. That section, a heavy drone team is typically 4 to 6 operators plus support, was working out of a forward hide, meaning a concealed launch site with pre-positioned batteries, munitions, and a hardened data link back to the Shark feed. 6 R18 Vampires were prepped. 2 waves of 3. The math of the strike had already been worked out on a laptop map while the convoy was still forming up outside Rovenky. First wave, hit the lead tanker and the trail security truck, funnel the column. Second wave, walk 5 thermobaric bombs down the length of the stalled formation, prioritizing the tankers with the most exposed fill points. Total planned time from first drop to last, under 40 minutes. Now, hold this number. How many of those 19 vehicles do you think the Vampire section actually confirmed destroyed by the end of the engagement? 12? 16? 19? 20 plus? Hold that number. We come back to it at the end. And no, the answer is not the obvious one. At 01:31, 17 minutes after the Shark called the convoy, the first Vampire is off the ground. Flight time to the intercept point is roughly 22 minutes. The convoy is doing about 40 kilometers per hour on the P-66. The math meets in the middle, and here is where you have to understand why any of this works, because this is not a movie. It is a system. The Vampire is a slow drone. It cruises somewhere around 60 kilometers per hour. It is loud, close in. It is not stealthy in any real sense. What makes it survivable in the rear area is the assumption stack Russian doctrine has built around itself. Nobody in the convoy is looking up at a 15-kilogram octocopter at 200 meters altitude at 1 in the morning because nobody has been trained to expect one. The point defenses that would slaughter a Vampire, the Pantsir S-1s, the Tor M2s, are pulled forward to protect brigade command posts and air defense radars, not truck columns. The EW pods supposed to blanket this corridor are, per multiple OSINT trackers, including Exilanova Plus and Tochny, spread thin along a sector that keeps getting wider. There is, in short, a gap. The Vampire Regiment was designed to fly through gaps. At 01:38, the operation almost comes apart. This is worth stopping on, because reconstructions like this one tend to sand off the moments where the plan nearly failed. On the 6th minute of the ingress leg, the Shark's data link degraded. A short but real drop, roughly 90 seconds, consistent with either terrain masking or a Russian jammer briefly hitting the right frequency. The Vampire section lost the live convoy feed. Standard doctrine at that point is to abort and rehold. The section lead, according to a debrief summary later described by Militarnyi, chose to continue on the last known bearing and speed vector and reacquire on the terminal leg. It was not the safe call, it was the correct call. When the Shark link came back at 01:39 plus change, the convoy was exactly where the projection said it would be. 90 seconds of nerve is what separated a successful strike from an aborted mission with 6 drones burning batteries over an empty road. 01:48. First wave releases. The lead Kamazzi tanker takes a thermobaric drop from roughly 160 meters above the road. Fuel-air detonation on a tanker full of diesel does something almost hard to describe. The primary blast opens the tank. The secondary event is the diesel itself igniting under overpressure. The lead vehicle does not so much explode as collapse into a rolling ball of orange that closes the 2-lane P-66 in front of the column. 9 seconds later, the trail security truck absorbs the second drop. Now the convoy is boxed. It has 2 lanes of asphalt, a shoulder that will not take a fully loaded Kamaz, and a wall of fire in front and behind. 0204. Second wave. 5 vampires arrive on station in a staggered ingress. They do not release simultaneously. That is the tell of a mature drone unit. They walk the strikes, one drop every 20 to 30 seconds, letting the shark confirm the previous kill and redesignate. Tanker 3. Tanker 6. The BAZ prime mover with the fuel bladder. That one is the biggest single event of the night. An estimated 40,000 liters of diesel going up in a single overpressure wave that, according to Defense Express, was visible on Ukrainian ISR feeds from more than 30 kilometers away. Tanker 9. Tanker 11. Between drops, drivers are abandoning the vehicles and running for the tree line. Some make it, some do not. At 0148 plus 34, 0222 local, the shark logs its last confirmed kill of the engagement. 34 minutes from the first drop to the last. $85,000 of Ukrainian ordnance. $1.4 million of Russian logistics, plus roughly 280,000 liters of diesel that will no longer be arriving anywhere. Subscribe to Fury Military if you want to understand how this war is actually fought. System by system, sensor by sensor. Because the P-66 is not the exception anymore. It is the pattern. Now the official line, because there is always one. Russian Telegram channel Rybar, which has spent the last 3 years as the semi-official conduit for Milblogger narrative management, acknowledged in the following morning's update, paraphrasing. Significant fire damage to auxiliary transport in the Luhansk direction. Auxiliary transport. 19 fuel vehicles hauling diesel to a combined arms army in contact is not auxiliary transport. It is the artery. That is move 2 of the military show playbook, and it plays out every time. The official line and the reality diverge, and the direction of the divergence tells you what Moscow is trying to hide. In this case, the shortage of the specific thing that was lost. The Institute for the Study of War's July 3rd assessment, which used a combination of geolocated wreckage, Ukrainian general staff figures, and independent OSINT trackers, showed something the Rybar post did not. A 4-day collapse in fuel throughput across the entire Svatove sector. Not a dip. A collapse. Trucks that were supposed to arrive at forward supply points did not arrive. Fuel that was supposed to be at brigade fuel points was not there. A Russian mechanized battalion that had been probing north of Kupiansk pulled back inside 48 hours. Not because of Ukrainian pressure at the front, but because the diesel was not showing up in the rear. That is the zoom out. That is what a 34-minute drone strike at 60 kilometers depth does to an operational sector. And notice, this is what should stay with you. The shortage was already there. Russian military logistics has been running on tighter margins for the entire year. Ukrainian long-range strikes on refineries in the interior, the Ryazan events in April, the Volgograd fires in May, the Saratov damage in June, have been chewing at the top of the fuel production funnel. Rovenky was chewing at the bottom, at the last-mile distribution. When both ends of a supply chain start eating, the middle gets thin fast. The Kremlin issued a domestic diesel export restriction in mid-June that Peskov described, loosely from the Reuters wire, as a prudent measure for domestic market stability. An export ban to guarantee your own population has fuel is a quiet confession of exactly the shortage the official line denies. You cannot insist your army does not depend on a thing and then seize up the moment it is taken away. If you think tempo beats mass, type fury in the comments, because that is the argument this whole war is making, night after night, and Rovenky is one data point in a much larger regression. Let us zoom out further, because a single fuel convoy is not the story on its own. The story is that Ukraine has been systematically standing up specialized deep strike drone regiments across 2025 and into 2026, and they are pushing the definition of safe rear backward. A year ago, Russian logistics doctrine considered anything past 40 kilometers to be effectively out of drone reach. Now, per multiple analyses including the Center for Strategic and International Studies and defense open-source outlets like Militarnyi and United 24 Media, the effective drone strike depth for heavy bomber octocopters is comfortably 100 to 120 kilometers on a good night. That is not a linear improvement. That is a doctrine failure on the Russian side. Every kilometer that safe rear line moves backward is another Rovenky waiting to happen, another fuel node, another ammunition transfer point, another repair depot that assumed distance was armor. Distance was armor. It is not anymore. That is the sanctuary myth dying. Russian command spent 18 months trusting geography to do work that geography could not do. because geography does not compensate for a sensor network you cannot shut down. The Shark stayed up. The Vampires flew. The convoy burned. Not because the Ukrainians brought superior mass, they did not, they never do, but because they brought superior tempo, superior chain integration, superior nerve at 0138 when the data link dropped and the section lead did not abort. There is a temptation, watching a video like this, to make the story about the hardware, about the R18 Vampire, its rotors, its payload, its thermal signature. The hardware matters, but the hardware is not the point. The point is the chain. A Shark, a data link, a section lead with a laptop, a hide site 47 kilometers west, an EW gap along one specific highway, 6 drones, 2 waves, 34 minutes. Any one of those links fails, and the P-66 stays open. All 6 work, and a Russian combined arms army loses fuel throughput for 4 days. That is what modern war is, and it is why the argument that this conflict is about who has more tanks stopped being true somewhere in the second year of it. The tree line north of Rovenky is quiet now. The wreck field along the P-66 is still there. Defense Express geolocated it from Sentinel satellite imagery a week later, and the burned-out Kamazov frames are visible as dark scars on the shoulder of the road. The road itself was closed for over 60 hours, not because Ukraine was preventing traffic, but because clearing 19 destroyed fuel vehicles, and the ordnance still cooking off inside them takes time. Nobody in Rovenky had. So, the quizzes, before we close. First one, from the top. Which link in this kill chain actually decided it? A. The Shark. B. The Vampires. C. The EW gap. The answer is C. The electronic warfare gap along the P-66 corridor. Here is why. Because this is the part that surprises people who watch a lot of drone footage. The Vampires are impressive. The Shark is impressive. But hardware without permission to operate is scrap. Ukraine has had heavy octocopters for 2 years. What changed at Rovenky, and what has been changing across the front through 2026, is that Russian EW coverage in the deep rear has thinned to the point where the sensor-to-shooter chain can actually close. Take away that gap, and the Shark link never survives 90 seconds of jamming. The Vampires never find the convoy. The drops never happen. The gap is the decision. The hardware is the delivery. Second question. How many of the 19 vehicles were confirmed destroyed? The Ukrainian General Staff and Defense Express both settled on 19. All of them. Every vehicle in the convoy, 12 tankers, 3 Baz Prime movers, 2 support trucks, the lead, the trail. Not one made it to Svatove. Worth noting here, these figures originate overwhelmingly with Ukrainian and Ukrainian-aligned sources and should be treated as claims rather than fully independent confirmation. The wreck field imagery supports a very high count. Whether the true number is 18 or 19 is not the point. The point is the direction is credible, and even Rybar did not dispute the scale, only the framing. 3 questions before we close, and I want them in the comments because I read them. First, what does the Russian side actually do about the deep rear EW gap? Do they pull point defenses backward, thin the front, and give up ground, or do they accept the attrition and keep pushing? Second, at what depth does Ukraine's Vampire Regiment stop being cost-effective? 100 kilometers, 120, 150, and what breaks the curve? Third, if Rovenky becomes the pattern across every operational sector, how long can the Russian offensive machine sustain a tempo that depends on fuel it cannot deliver? Real tempo, real consequences. This is Fury Military. The point of this analysis is not to celebrate destruction, but to understand the military and human realities behind it. Because the clearer we see modern war, the clearer the value of deterrence, of stability, and of a just peace becomes.